Thank you very much. What Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision. But
how is the prosecution's star witness allowed to say anything that he wants, and then the former president is not allowed to respond?
Because we have a dual system of justice and a very unconstitutional gag order. As his legal spokeswoman, I'm nervous about what I can't say, and that's also unconstitutional. The fact that they will not let a defendant speak and exercise his First Amendment rights, never mind the leading candidate for president, that is un-American. It violates his First Amendment rights. And yes, yesterday we filed something in the appellate division to appeal this completely ridiculous order. Hopefully the appellate division will see that it is unconstitutional, as we say it is. And the American people definitely already do.
And I'm wondering, is Stormy Daniels so concerned about the charge of accounting fraud that she wants him to go to jail, or is she just a witness that has a total amount of animus toward this president, this former president, based on other issues that have nothing to do with the matter at hand in this court?
Well, as you know, she's still on the stand and she's still under oath. I'm an attorney for the president, so I'm going to be careful in watching my words. She will continue. She has obviously completed her testimony, and I'll let it speak for itself.
But I think most telling about the testimony today was that this was a masterclass in cross-examination. You had an attorney who was able to question Stormy Daniels about what she said that the prosecution laid out very clearly, but all of the prior inconsistent statements that are what we use as prosecutors to make the witness incredible. And this witness was incredible because
you know, they've got a gag order, so he can't go campaign. They've got him holed up in a courtroom. So Joe Biden,
while his company was committing Medicare fraud,
I don't recall.
He pled the fifth 75 times and wouldn't even confirm his signature.
It looks like my signature, but what's your question?
no.
Did it have anything to do with the gag order, you being here today?
No, I'm fed up. I watched what happened to me and my company. I've watched what's happened. I've talked to business people over the years, what's happened to them when you have political persecution. And now what I've watched what President Trump has done with all these cases. This is just simply, they don't want this guy on the ballot. I mean, now I'm proud of him for standing up for all of us, because guess what? It's not going to end with him. They can go after any one of us if they want to, and you do not have the resources to do it. They can go after the former president, they can go after you.
If I'm the prosecutor in this case, I am thrilled because I know that the more that they go down this rabbit hole of focusing on a sexual encounter, the more, number one, to your point, Karen, it opens up the door for me to ask more details the judge would not allow. But I'm going to also think to myself, look, this is going to come down to the falsified records. The more this jury believes that she would have done anything to get this story out for money, the more it builds my case that Donald Trump, Michael Cohen and company would have done everything they could to try to silence her beforehand. And then it gets to the falsified business records. Remember, it comes down to the intent. Notice who we're not hearing about.
I guess they can't argue about. I mean, there's not as much you can do when you argue about records. No, the records are the records. There it is in black and white. Yeah. You can go back and forth with Stormy Daniels over details of this and that.
And I'm concerned for the defense if they're trying to suggest what they have to prove that this was somehow, yes, if he tried to silence her, it was because of his family. Have we heard anything about Trump's family? Have we heard from this cross-examination so far? Have we heard anything about his wife or his children? No, and that's the path that this jury will have to be asked and questioned about, whether he did these things allegedly with a substantial motivation being personal. So far, what we are seeing is a personal animus towards her. And here we have Nick was asking Daniels to confirm that she told In Touch magazine that Trump personally asked her to dinner. Now, of course, her testimony before was about
orange turd, you know, the tweets and that kind of stuff. It got out of hand, but they could have simply made a very powerful point, which is you really want him to go to jail. You think it's great. You think it's funny. You've celebrated it. She would have to say yes to that.
But this is, I mean, we're talking about Donald Trump, who has had rallies where they chant "lock her up."
Right.
I mean, again, we're talking about shameless self-promotion in terms of selling products. Trump has sold Bibles with the Constitution in it. I mean, we're talking about
Gold
mean
sneakers.
tweets.
Right.
Really, we're talking.
This whole plan to try to look down your nose at Stormy Daniels. Now she says, "Wow." She says, "Wow," with a pause. That's not how I would put it. The sex in the films is very much real, just like what happened to me in that room. I'm telling you, here's a mic.
The sex is real. That's why
it's real. That's why it's pornography. But again, this is what necklace.
This morning.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever say this sentence, but they're actually arguing over who the orange turd is that Stormy Daniels referenced in a tweet. She says, "Oh, I absolutely meant Mr. Trump." So Stormy Daniels has now clarified that is, in fact, who she was talking about when she talked about flushing an orange turd down the toilet.
If you're Jewish and you vote for him, I say shame on you.
So to be clear,
What Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision.
There was another exchange right after that where she was asked, basically, the lead of Nicholas's comment was that you had made up the story. So you write stories, you make up stories, so you made up the stories. And she says, you have a lot of experience making phony stories about sex. Wow, that's not how I would put it. The sex in the films is very much real, just like what happened to me in that room. And now there's a story you're telling about President Trump. And she said, if that story was untrue, and Chris and I both noticed this, I would have written it to be a lot better.
I mean,
she shows a lot of personality.
She does. She even says, I think, like, who would admit that they had sex with President Trump? I mean, the Donald Trump. She has this sort of tone of credibility. Again, you don't want to necessarily like her as your neighbor. You may not want to date her. She may not be your best friend, but that's not what this is about. And frankly, the concern that I would have as the defense is you're taking this into an area that doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, whether they had sex or not is really inconsequential, actually. It's irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. It's why the former president, and I keep on using that term, Donald Trump, who was not yet the president, did what he did. And if you believe that he falsified these records, what was the reason why? That's it. So whether they did or didn't is somewhat inconsequential.
That garbage can orbit of Donald Trump. No doubt that he's nervous.
What'd you do?
On Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, Donald Trump entered a Manhattan courtroom and pled not guilty to 34 crimes.
Russia.
You're a fucking movie star.
Tick, tick, tick.